In a quiet suburb outside Boston, Linda Carter, a dedicated wife, mother, and English teacher, started her day with a familiar routine. The warm aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingled with sizzling bacon as she moved gracefully through the kitchen, orchestrating the family's morning. "Sophia, are you awake yet?" Linda called out, her voice carrying up the stairs with a tone of gentle urgency. Sophia, her 15-year-old daughter, habitually savored her sleep, and Linda always worried she might run late for school. Before Linda could hear a response, Logan, her husband of 18 years, descended the stairs. Dressed sharply in his business attire, Logan managed to smile despite the weight of his responsibilities as a sales manager for Kara North America, a leading cleaning equipment company. "Good morning, Linda," Logan greeted, setting his leather briefcase by the door. "Early presentation today?" Linda asked, catching a glance at his slightly furrowed brow. "Yes," Logan replied, his voice tinged with nervous energy. "It's a big pitch for a new product. I've been fine-tuning it all week, but I'm still on edge." Linda stepped closer, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You've got this. You always do. Just focus on your strengths, and the rest will fall into place." Her words seemed to ease Logan's tension as Sophia finally bounded down the stairs, her youthful energy lighting up the room. "Mom, can I go to the mall after school today?" Sophia asked, her eyes hopeful. Linda paused, evaluating her daughter's schedule with the practiced care of a mother who balanced support and discipline. "Have you finished your homework?" "Of course. I did it all last night," Sophia answered confidently. "All right, but be back by 8 p.m., Linda relented, earning an excited "Thanks, Mom," from Sophia as she grabbed her breakfast. The family shared a brief but warm meal before scattering to their respective daily pursuits. Logan to his presentation, Sophia to her school day, and Linda to her cherished role as a teacher at Quincy High School. As Linda drove to work, her thoughts drifted to how smoothly the morning had unfolded. The peaceful rhythm of her family's life brought her comfort, though she couldn't shake the feeling that forces beyond their control might soon test this harmony. Linda returned home that evening with a familiar sense of satisfaction from her day at Quincy High School. Teaching literature to her students always felt like a small yet meaningful contribution to their futures. But as she entered her cozy kitchen, she noticed Logan sitting at the dining table, his brows furrowed in thought. "Logan, everything all right?" Linda asked, setting her bag on the counter. He looked up, his face a mixture of hesitation and concern. "I got a call from Amelia today." Linda's heart sank slightly. Amelia, Logan's younger sister, had a way of bringing turbulence wherever she went. The last time Amelia stayed with them, it had left emotional scars that Linda was still reluctant to revisit. "She lost her job," Logan continued, his voice heavy with empathy. "She's asking if she can stay with us for a little while, just until she gets back on her feet." Linda took a moment before responding, carefully choosing her words. "Logan, I understand you want to help her, but do you remember what happened the last time she stayed here? It wasn't just difficult. It nearly tore us apart." Logan sighed, rubbing his temples. "I know. I haven't forgotten. But this time feels different." She sounded genuinely apologetic. "I think she's changed, Linda." Linda wanted to believe him, but a lingering caution held her back. What if she hasn't? Sophia is older now. I don't want her exposed to unnecessary drama. Logan reached across the table, taking Linda's hand in his. "I'll keep a close eye on everything. I promise. If anything seems off, we'll address it immediately." Linda hesitated, but ultimately nodded. "All right. But let's make it clear this is temporary." That night, as Linda lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the memories of Amelia's previous visit replayed in her mind like a haunting montage. Heated arguments, broken trust, and how it strained their marriage. She hoped against hope that this time, indeed, would be different. It was a rainy Saturday afternoon when the doorbell chimed, signaling Amelia's arrival. Logan rushed to the door, umbrella in hand, while Linda lingered in the living room, steadying her nerves. "Hey, Amelia," Logan greeted warmly as he opened the door. Amelia stood there, her figure slightly hunched against the rain, holding 2 suitcases. Her face looked thinner, her eyes tired, but her smile was tentative and hopeful. Thank you for letting me stay, Logan, Amelia said softly. As they entered the house, Linda stood to greet her. Welcome, Amelia, she said, her tone polite but cautious. Thank you, Linda. I'm sorry for the trouble, Amelia replied, her voice tinged with sincerity. Before Linda could respond, Sophia came bounding down the stairs. Aunt Amelia, she exclaimed, her teenage enthusiasm cutting through the tension in the room. Amelia's face lit up as she embraced Sophia. Look at you. You've grown so much, she said warmly. The interaction brought a moment of levity, but Linda couldn't help feeling unease in her stomach. During dinner, Amelia shared the details of her job loss. The company was going through financial trouble and had a massive layoff. I was one of the first to go, she explained, her voice breaking slightly. Logan reached out to comfort her. It's okay, Amelia. Take your time to find something new. You're safe here. Linda forced a smile, though her mind was racing with concerns. She didn't want to appear unsupportive, but couldn't ignore the creeping sense of unease. In the days that followed, Amelia quickly settled into their routine. She seemed eager to help around the house, often cooking or tidying up unprompted. Sophia grew closer to her aunt, spending evenings laughing and talking in the living room. But Linda began to notice subtle shifts. Amelia's questions about Logan's work seemed overly curious. How's the new product development going? She asked one evening during dinner. Logan hesitated, then replied, It's going well, but most details are confidential. Amelia nodded, her interest seeming casual, but Linda's instincts told her otherwise. Later that night, Linda brought up her concerns in their bedroom. Logan, have you noticed Amelia keeps asking about your work? Logan frowned. She's just making conversation. I think you're reading too much into it. Linda sighed, unsure whether she was overreacting or simply protecting her family. Her mind swirled with doubt and unease as she lay in bed that night. The rain outside tapped against the window, a steady reminder that storms often start subtly, building strength in the shadows. Once a haven of peace, the Carter home erupted in chaos one late Friday evening. Linda was in the kitchen preparing dinner, reflecting on her students' lively discussion of Romeo and Juliet earlier that day. Sophia's voice calling out from the front door broke her thoughts. I'm home. Linda turned to greet her with a warm smile, but the smile quickly faded as she saw Sophia's pale face. Her daughter clutched her stomach, her steps faltering as she entered the house. Sophia, are you okay? Linda asked, rushing to her side. Sophia's voice was weak. My stomach hurts. I feel nauseous. Before Linda could process what was happening, Sophia's face turned ashen, and she bolted for the bathroom. Violent retching sounds followed, and Linda's heart sank in panic. Amelia, Linda called out, hoping for help, but the house seemed unusually quiet. When there was no response, Linda ran to check on Sophia, trembling and breaking out in a cold sweat. Grabbing her phone, Linda dialed Logan. Come home quickly, she said, her voice shaking. Something's wrong with Sophia. Logan's reply was urgent. I'm on my way. As Linda hung up, Sophia let out a weak cry, her body writhing in pain. Linda dialed 911, her hands trembling as she relayed their address. Please hurry, she begged. Within minutes, the sound of sirens filled the neighborhood. Paramedics arrived, quickly assessing Sophia's worsening condition. We need to get her to Massachusetts General Hospital immediately, one of them said. Linda rode in the ambulance, clutching Sophia's hand. Mom, I'm scared, Sophia whispered, her voice faint. It's okay, sweetheart. I'm here, Linda said, her fear buried beneath a mask of strength. At the hospital, Sophia was rushed into the treatment room. Logan arrived moments later, his face etched with worry. What's happening? He asked. I don't know yet, Linda replied, her voice cracking. The doctors are still examining her. The minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Finally, a doctor approached, his expression grave. Mr. and Mrs. Carter, your daughter is exhibiting symptoms of acute poisoning. We're running tests to identify the toxin. Linda and Logan exchanged stunned glances. Poisoning? How could this happen? Linda asked, her voice barely a whisper. The doctor nodded solemnly. We've started detoxification treatment, but the next 24 hours will be critical. As Sophia lay in the hospital bed, hooked up to machines, Linda couldn't shake the sense that something was wrong beyond the poisoning itself. Logan sat beside her, holding Sophia's hand while Linda's mind raced. "Where's Amelia?" Logan asked suddenly, glancing around. "I don't know," Linda replied, frowning. "She didn't come down when everything happened." Logan pulled out his phone and called Amelia. She answered after several rings. "I'm so sorry, Logan. I had something urgent to do," Amelia said, her tone oddly casual. Logan's face hardened. "Sophia's in the hospital. She's been poisoned. You didn't think that was important enough to show up?" Amelia hesitated. "I didn't know it was that serious," she stammered. After the call ended, Linda's unease grew. Something about Amelia's response didn't sit right. The next day, the family received an unexpected visit from hospital security officers. They led Logan and Linda to a surveillance room. "We noticed something concerning on last night's footage," one officer said, playing a video on the monitor. The screen showed the ambulance arriving at the hospital, but in the background, a figure lingered near the parking lot. Linda gasped as she recognized Amelia. "What is she doing there?" Logan asked, his voice tight with confusion. Two detectives entered the room before they could process what they'd seen. "Mr. and Mrs. Carter, I'm Detective Ethan Blake, and this is Detective David Ross. We're investigating your daughter's case," one of them said, holding their badges. Detective Blake continued, "We received a tip that might explain the poisoning. Would you mind stepping into the next room?" In the adjoining room, Linda's breath caught as she saw evidence pinned to the walls. Photos of toxic substances found in Amelia's car and screenshots of suspicious text messages exchanged between Amelia and Sophia. "Amelia?" Logan whispered, his face pale. Detective Ross nodded grimly. "It appears that Amelia has been introducing toxins to your household, targeting Sophia to create chaos while she attempted to steal confidential information from your company, Mr. Carter." Linda felt her knees weaken as the truth began to sink in. She clutched Logan's arm for support. How could she do this? Logan muttered, his voice thick with betrayal. "We believe jealousy and resentment played a role," Detective Blake said. "She's been under financial strain and may have been working with a rival company." At that moment, Linda's phone buzzed with an incoming call. Seeing Amelia's name on the screen, she hesitated before answering. "Amelia," Linda said, her voice trembling. "What have you done?" On the other end, Amelia's voice wavered. "Linda, listen. It's not what it seems. I didn't mean for this to happen." "Then why is there evidence linking you to Sophia's poisoning?" Linda asked, anger cutting through her fear. "I can explain everything. I'm coming to the hospital now," Amelia said, her voice desperate. The call ended abruptly, leaving Linda and Logan in stunned silence. "Detective," Logan said firmly, "we need to confront her." The detectives nodded. "We'll accompany you, but proceed with caution. This could escalate." Linda's heart pounded as they headed to meet Amelia in the hospital parking lot. Her thoughts churned with disbelief and dread. The sister-in-law she had reluctantly welcomed back into their home had shattered their trust and nearly destroyed their family. Linda and Logan entered the hospital parking lot, accompanied by Detectives Blake and Ross. The air was tense. The faint hum of passing traffic mingled with the distant sirens' wail. Amelia's car was in the center of the lot, flanked by police vehicles. As the group approached, the car door slowly opened, and Amelia emerged, her face pale and her movements hesitant. "Logan, Linda," she began, her voice trembling. Logan took a step forward, his expression a mixture of anger and disbelief. "Amelia, what have you done?" Amelia's eyes filled with tears as she held up her hands defensively. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Please let me explain." Detective Blake raised a hand to keep the situation under control. "Miss Carter, we need you to cooperate fully. If there's an explanation, now is the time to give it." Amelia hesitated, her gaze darting between the detectives and her family. I didn't mean to hurt Sophia. It was all supposed to be harmless, just enough to distract everyone while her voice trailed off. Linda's voice broke the silence, sharp and filled with pain. "While you what, Amelia? Poisoned my daughter? Betrayed your family?" Tears streamed down Amelia's face as she sank to her knees. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was desperate. I needed the money, and they promised me. Who promised you? Detective Ross interjected. Amelia's voice dropped to a whisper. A competitor of Logan's company. They offered me a way out of my debts if I gave them inside information. I thought I could handle it without anyone getting hurt. Logan's voice was cold, trembling with restrained fury. You thought poisoning my daughter was harmless? Amelia sobbed. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I swear I didn't know the toxin would affect her so badly. I didn't think. You didn't think at all, Linda snapped, her hands clenched. As Amelia crumpled into tears, Detective Blake stepped forward. Miss Carter, you're under arrest for industrial espionage and attempted poisoning. You have the right to remain silent. The detectives escorted Amelia to a police vehicle. Logan and Linda stood frozen, their emotions a swirling storm of betrayal, anger, and heartbreak. As the car pulled away, Logan turned to Linda. I can't believe this. My sister. Linda placed a trembling hand on his arm. We'll get through this. But right now, Sophia needs us more than ever. The sterile smell and beeping monitors greeted them in the hospital as they returned to Sophia's room. Their daughter lay still, her pale face framed by tubes and wires. Linda sank into the chair beside the bed, holding Sophia's hand tightly. I'm so sorry, sweetheart, she whispered, tears sliding down her cheeks. Mom and Dad are here. We'll fix this. As the hours stretched on, the medical team worked tirelessly. That afternoon, a doctor entered with a calm but serious demeanor. Mr. and Mrs. Carter, we've identified the toxin, the doctor said. With this information, we can begin a targeted detoxification protocol. Linda clutched Logan's hand as relief washed over her. Thank you. Please, do whatever it takes. The following day, Dr. Claire Adams, a toxicology specialist, joined the team. She greeted them warmly, exuding confidence and compassion. Mr. and Mrs. Carter, I've reviewed Sophia's case. We have a cutting-edge treatment that shows promise in situations like this. It's experimental but safe. Would you like to proceed? Without hesitation, Logan nodded. Yes, please. Do whatever you can to save our daughter. The treatment began, and the waiting game continued. Nurses came and went, monitoring Sophia's progress as Linda and Logan stayed by her side, taking turns resting in the uncomfortable hospital chairs. Late one night, as Linda sat in the dimly lit room, she noticed a slight but unmistakable movement. Sophia's fingers twitched, her eyelids fluttering slightly. Sophia? Linda gasped, leaning closer. Sophia's eyes opened, weak but alive. Mom, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Linda's heart soared as she kissed her daughter's forehead. I'm here, sweetheart. You're going to be okay. Logan rushed to her side, his face lighting up with hope. Sophia, we're here. We've got you. The nurses quickly called the doctor, who confirmed that Sophia's condition was stabilizing. She's not out of the woods yet, but this is a significant improvement, Dr. Adams said with a smile. As Sophia drifted back into a peaceful sleep, Logan wrapped his arms around Linda. For the first time in days, they felt a glimmer of hope. The morning after Sophia's breakthrough, Linda sat in the hospital cafeteria, staring blankly at her untouched coffee. Logan joined her, his face lined with exhaustion. She woke up, Linda. That's what matters, Logan said softly, placing a comforting hand on hers. Linda nodded, but her thoughts were elsewhere. I keep replaying everything in my mind. How did we not see what Amelia was doing? How did it get this far? Logan sighed, guilt weighing heavily on his words. She's my sister. I wanted to believe she'd changed. I never thought. His voice trailed off as he rubbed his temples. She nearly destroyed us, Logan, Linda whispered, her voice cracking. And Sophia. Logan tightened his grip on her hand. But she didn't. Sophia is alive. We'll protect her and rebuild, no matter how hard it is. Back in Sophia's hospital room, the mood was cautiously optimistic. Sophia's minor improvements gave the medical team hope, but the scars of betrayal lingered. Linda couldn't shake the image of Amelia crying in the parking lot, her face a mix of guilt and desperation. Later that afternoon, Detective Blake visited them with updates. Amelia has confessed to everything, he began, his tone professional but sympathetic. She admitted to working with a competitor of Carer North America. She aimed to steal proprietary information and use the chaos she caused as a cover. Linda's stomach churned. And Sophia? Why poison a child? Detective Blake hesitated, his gaze steady but somber. She didn't intend for the poisoning to be this severe. According to her statement, she believed the substance would cause minor illness, enough to distract you both. But she underestimated the potency and Sophia's reaction. Logan clenched his fists, his jaw tight. And now? What happens to her? She'll face charges for industrial espionage and attempted poisoning. The evidence against her is substantial, and her cooperation will factor into sentencing. This will likely result in a significant prison term, Detective Blake explained. Linda's heart ached despite her anger. Amelia's actions were unforgivable, but she was still family. As the detective left, Linda turned to Logan. How do we explain this to Sophia? She'll want to know why her aunt would do something like this. Logan looked out the window, his voice quiet but resolute. We tell her the truth. She deserves that much. Sophia's recovery continued steadily over the next few days. The experimental detoxification therapy proved effective, and her strength began to return. Her first full day awake was quiet, filled with short conversations and plenty of rest. Mom, Sophia said softly as Linda sat by her bed, stroking her hair. Yes, sweetheart, Linda replied, her voice gentle. Why did Aunt Amelia do this to me? Sophia's eyes were filled with confusion and hurt. Linda took a deep breath, her hand never leaving her daughter's. Your aunt made some evil choices, Sophia. She let her jealousy and problems cloud her judgment. What she did was wrong, and there's no excuse for it. But she's going to face the consequences. Sophia was silent for a moment before nodding slowly. I don't understand it, but I don't need to. You don't? Linda said, kissing her daughter's forehead. You just need to focus on getting better. That's all that matters now. Sitting in the corner of the room, Logan added, We'll always protect you, Sophia, no matter what. As Sophia's strength grew, so did the support from their community. Friends, colleagues, and even Linda's students rallied around them, filling the hospital room with cards, flowers, and messages of encouragement. One afternoon, the head of Linda's English department, Sarah Johnson, arrived with a special gift. We've all been thinking of you, Sarah said, handing Linda a handmade scrapbook. It was filled with messages and photos from Linda's students, each a testament to their love and respect for their teacher. Linda flipped through the pages, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, Sarah. This means more than I can say. The Carter family regained a sense of normalcy as days turned into weeks. Sophia's doctors were optimistic about her full recovery, and plans for her discharge were set in motion. On the day Sophia left the hospital, they were met with overwhelming support. The hospital lobby was filled with neighbors, friends, and Linda's colleagues, all there to celebrate Sophia's return home. An extensive banner reading, Welcome Home, Sophia, hung above the entrance. Still a little shy about the attention, Sophia smiled as tears filled her eyes. Thank you, everyone, she said, quiet but sincere. As the family drove home, the mood was reflective. Linda glanced back at Sophia, who was resting against the window, a small smile on her face. She's so strong, Linda whispered to Logan. Logan nodded, his voice filled with pride. She gets it from you. When they arrived home, they were surprised. Their front porch was decorated with flowers, balloons, and notes from their neighbors. Inside, the house was warm and inviting, filled with a sense of peace they hadn't felt in weeks. Logan spoke as the family sat together in the living room that night. We've been through a lot, but I think this experience has taught us something important. Linda nodded. About the strength of family and the importance of trust. Sophia, curled up on the couch, added, and forgiveness. Even when it's hard. Linda and Logan exchanged a glance, their daughter's words resonating deeply. The path ahead wouldn't be easy. Rebuilding trust, navigating Amelia's trial, and continuing Sophia's recovery would take time. But as they sat together, surrounded by love and support, The Carters felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Days after Sophia returned home, life began to settle into a tentative rhythm. Yet, beneath the surface, the looming reality of Amelia's upcoming trial cast a shadow over their lives. Logan sat at the dining table late one evening, reviewing documents related to his company, while Linda prepared tea in the kitchen. "I spoke to the prosecutor today," Logan said, breaking the silence. Linda looked up, her expression cautious. "And they're moving forward with charges of industrial espionage and attempted poisoning. Amelia's lawyer has requested a plea deal, but the prosecutor is hesitant given the severity of her actions." Linda walked over, placing the steaming teacup in front of him. "Do you think they'll go through with the full trial?" Logan nodded. "It seems likely. The prosecutor believes this case sends a message about corporate sabotage. And then there's Sophia." His voice cracked slightly. "Her safety and the trauma she endured. It can't go unanswered." Linda sat beside him, her hands folded tightly. "I know justice is important, but it's still hard to believe Amelia could do something so cruel. She's family, Logan." "She was," Logan said firmly, his disappointed tone heavy. "But family doesn't do this. She betrayed us in ways I never thought possible." Linda sighed, her eyes welling with tears. "And yet, I can't help but feel sorry for her. She let jealousy and desperation destroy her life, and nearly ours." That night, as they lay in bed, Linda stared at the ceiling, her thoughts racing. She couldn't stop replaying Amelia's tearful confession, the image of her collapsing in the parking lot, and the sound of Sophia's small, frightened voice in the hospital. Logan's voice interrupted her thoughts. "Linda, are you okay?" "I'm just thinking about what comes next," she admitted. "The trial, Sophia's recovery, trying to rebuild everything Amelia shattered. It's overwhelming." Logan reached over, holding her hand. "We'll take it one day at a time. We've made it this far. We can handle the rest." As the trial approached, Linda received an unexpected call from Amelia's lawyer. "Mrs. Carter," the lawyer began, his voice measured, "Amelia has expressed a desire to speak with you and your family before the trial. She says she wants to explain her actions and apologize." Linda's breath caught. "I'm not sure we're ready for that," she said after a long pause. "I understand, but she insisted that I at least ask. If you decide against it, we'll respect your wishes," the lawyer replied. After hanging up, Linda shared the conversation with Logan. "She wants to meet with us?" Logan asked, his expression a mixture of skepticism and anger. Linda nodded. "I don't know what to do. Part of me thinks it might bring some closure, but the other part wonders if it's just another manipulation." Logan leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "If we do this, it has to be on our terms. And Sophia can't be involved. She's been through enough." They agreed to meet Amelia at the county detention center under strict conditions. The day of the meeting arrived, and Linda and Logan sat in a sterile visitation room, their nerves taut. The door opened, and Amelia entered, escorted by a guard. She looked different, thinner, her face pale and drawn. Her eyes, once sharp and calculating, now held a quiet resignation. "Logan, Linda," she began, her voice trembling. "Thank you for coming. I know I don't deserve it." Linda's expression was stoic. "Why did you ask us here, Amelia?" Amelia's hands shook as she clasped them together. "To say I'm sorry. For everything. For hurting Sophia, betraying you, and letting my jealousy destroy our family." Logan's jaw tightened. "Sorry doesn't erase what you did. You almost killed my daughter, Amelia. Do you even understand that?" Tears streamed down Amelia's face. "I do, Logan. I think about it every day, and I hate myself for it. But I need you to know, I never wanted to hurt her. I was desperate. I wasn't thinking clearly." Linda's voice was firm but laced with sorrow. "You put your greed and jealousy above the people who loved you. That's not something we can forgive easily." "I know," Amelia said, her voice breaking. "But I'm not asking for forgiveness right now. I wanted you to hear it from me. I was wrong, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make up for it, even if it's from behind bars." The room fell silent, her words hanging heavy in the air. After the meeting, Linda and Logan left the detention center, and their emotions conflicted. "She looked so broken," Linda said softly as they walked to the car. Logan nodded, his expression unreadable. "She should be. But maybe this is what she needs to start over." The courtroom was tense as the trial began. Linda and Logan sat in the gallery, their hands tightly clasped. The prosecutor presented a compelling case, laying out Amelia's role in the industrial espionage attempt and the poisoning that nearly claimed Sophia's life. Photos, text messages, and toxicology reports were displayed as evidence, each detail a painful reminder of the betrayal they had endured. Logan's jaw clenched as the prosecutor described how Amelia had exploited her access to their home to execute her plans. Amelia sat at the defendant's table, her face pale and her posture slumped. She avoided looking at Logan and Linda, but occasionally glanced toward the judge with an expression of quiet remorse. When it was time for Amelia to testify, the courtroom fell silent. Her lawyer guided her through questions about her actions and motives. "I wasn't thinking clearly," Amelia admitted, her voice shaking. "I was drowning in debt, and when the competitor approached me with an offer, I let my desperation cloud my judgment. If I caused just enough chaos, I could steal the information without anyone noticing. But I never intended for Sophia to be hurt. That was a terrible mistake I'll regret for the rest of my life." The prosecutor cross-examined her relentlessly, forcing her to acknowledge the calculated nature of her actions. Each question chipped away at her narrative of desperation, painting a picture of a woman who had prioritized her greed over her family. Linda felt a mix of emotions: anger, sorrow, and exhaustion. She leaned into Logan, who whispered, "We'll get through this." For Sophia. The trial lasted several days, with testimony from doctors, security personnel, and company executives. The turning point came when the prosecutor presented Amelia's signed confession, which thoroughly detailed her actions. In the end, the jury found Amelia guilty of industrial espionage and attempted poisoning. The judge sentenced her to 15 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 10 years for good behavior. As the sentence was read, Amelia broke down in tears. Linda and Logan remained stoic, though their hearts ached for their lost family. Reporters clamored for statements outside the courthouse, but Logan simply said, "Justice has been served. Now, we need to focus on healing." Weeks after the trial, life at the Carter home gained a sense of normalcy. Sophia was back in school, slowly reclaiming her teenage routine. Her strength and resilience inspired Linda and Logan, who worked hard to rebuild their lives. One sunny afternoon, Linda was sitting in the garden, surrounded by blooming flowers. Sophia joined her, carrying 2 mugs of tea. "Mom, do you think Aunt Amelia will ever be okay?" Sophia asked hesitantly. Linda looked at her daughter, considering her words carefully. "I think it depends on her, Sophia. She made terrible choices, but also had the chance to reflect and change. It's up to her to make the most of that opportunity." Sophia nodded thoughtfully. "I hope she does. Even after everything, I don't want her to suffer forever." Linda smiled, her heart swelling with pride at her daughter's compassion. "That says a lot about the kind of person you are, Sophia." Later that evening, Logan returned home with an unexpected announcement. "I've been thinking," he said, joining Linda and Sophia in the living room. "Maybe it's time we take a break from all this. A vacation somewhere quiet, where we can focus on each other." Sophia's face lit up. "Can we go to the beach?" Linda laughed, nodding. "I think that's a wonderful idea." The family began planning their trip, the excitement offering a welcome distraction from their trials. For the first time in months, laughter filled the house, a sound that had been absent for far too long. On the day of their departure, neighbors gathered to see them off, their support a constant reminder of the strength of their community. As the family drove away, Linda looked out the window, the sunlight filtering through the trees. She thought about everything they had endured, the betrayal, the pain, and the fight for justice. But she also thought about their resilience, the love that had carried them through, and the brighter days ahead. In the quiet moments of the journey, Sophia reached out and held her parents' hands. "Thank you for everything," she said softly. Logan smiled, glancing at Linda. "We're stronger together. That's all that matters." The Carter family had weathered a storm that could have broken them, but instead, it brought them closer, teaching them the value of trust, forgiveness, and hope. As they arrived at the beach, waves crashing against the shore felt like nature's way of cleansing the past, ushering in a new chapter of their lives. Together, they stepped onto the sand, ready to leave their footprints on a fresh path forward.